Hi everybody, and firstly I'd like to welcome you all to CFA Indonesia's first annual conference since the end of COVID. It's my great pleasure to have everybody here today and to welcome you all to our first conference where, due to unforeseen circumstances, we've had to, delay the conference by a few years. But it's great to have everybody back in the same room. I'm pleased to see that there are a lot of familiar faces in the room and also some new faces as well. And so for those who don't know me, my name is Mark Bruni. I'm Deputy CEO of a fintech here called Fairbank. And so we do BNPL or enabled terms of payment for merchants here in Indonesia. The conference today is about the transition towards net zero. And so we've brought into the room a number of people from both energy and finance backgrounds to help us discuss this in terms of how we can bring together the various worlds of industry and finance to help transition the economy towards a net zero economy. I think by now everybody's pretty much on the same page in terms of where we want to be in terms of heading towards a net zero target and to stop polluting our planet. But firstly, before we begin, and I introduce our first speaker, just like to thank our sponsors, PT Pertamina on the energy side, representing, PT Pupuk Indonesia, and PT Indika Nature, part of PT Indika Energy. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for the opening speech. This is a man who is already well known to most of us in the room, if not all, but also brings together that unique aspect of having held senior roles in both energy, being the ex-CFO of Pertamina, as well as senior roles in finance as well. Being ex-CEO of Bank BTN, along with holding senior roles with Mandiri as well. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Pak Pahala Mansuri, current Deputy Minister for BUMN 1, and to provide our opening speech. Pak Pahala.
Thank you, Mark. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang kami hormati Bapak Wakil Menteri KLHK, Pak Alu Dohong, terima kasih sudah bisa meluangkan waktu bersama-sama kita untuk bisa memberikan keynote speech nanti. Dan juga Ibu Resina Abdullah from CFA Institute Asia Pacific, thank you very much for spending time with us in Jakarta. All of the board member, all of the sponsor including PT Pertamina, Pupuk Indonesia, Indika Nature, and also the speakers, particularly Pak Haryadi from PLN, Director of Transmission dan Business System Development, Pak Danif Danusaputro, CEO of Pertamina New and Renewable Energy, Bapak Eka Himawan, Ibu Vivik Mulyana dari PwC, Pak Edo nanti juga akan bergabung sebagai salah satu pembicara, kemudian Pak Adi Saugi dari Mandiri Manajemen Investasi, Bu Amika Darmawan, Ibu Monica, all of the participants who has actually been in presence today. First of all, a very warm welcome from CFA Institute Indonesia. A little bit of introduction about CFA Institute Indonesia because not all of you probably are familiar with CFA Indonesia. CFA Indonesia was established in 3rd of July 2003. So today's seminar is basically a commemoration or a celebration of the 20th year anniversary of CFA Institute being in presence in Indonesia. At that time, we had about 16 members as the founder in the year of 2003. I joined CFA Indonesia in the year of 2005, so I've actually been a member for about 18 years already. Not young anymore. At that time was still kies. Yeah. And I think right now CFA Institute Indonesia has developed to become a relatively larger institution. But still, I think relative to the other institute of CFA globally, we are still very, very relatively small. The total number of active members that we have in CFA Indonesia right now is only about 330, Resina. So I think CFA Asia Pacific needs to do more, and I think CFA Institute Indonesia will also need to do more. I always say, in comparison, other country with similar size is probably Sri Lanka at that time, that I always compare it. Whereas actually, if we look at the total number of, or the size of the amount of the capital markets that we have in Indonesia, I think the 330 active members, as well as the total number of CFA certified members in Indonesia is still relatively short. So that is why we will need to continue to develop CFA Institute Indonesia, including through a seminar like what we are actually doing today. Actually, if you look at the total number of candidates of CFA, every year, right now we have about level 1 of about 731 candidates, and level 2 about 185 candidates of CFA, as well as 59 candidates for level 3. So hopefully through an event like this, we would like to be able to continue to introduce CFA Indonesia so that more and more people will be able to join us. So the commemoration today, we are actually organizing a seminar titled Indonesia's Transition Towards Net Zero. We believe in CFA Indonesia, this is actually a very hot topic because Indonesia has an NDC, ya, Pak Alu, ya, of how are we going to be able to achieve the reduction of emission by about 32% by the year of 2030. Imagine the challenge that Indonesia will need to actually go through. Because if you know the target or the vision of Indonesia, by the year of 2045, we would need to be able to grow every year, GDP to grow by about 5.7%. So 5.7% in GDP growth translate into, if we are actually looking at the possibility for us to grow from 2024 until 2030, in about 6 years from now, the capacity of energy in Indonesia, just to use energy as an example, because energy is one of the key sectors that has actually been contributing significantly in emission, the capacity of the energy in Indonesia will need to at least double. At least double. So imagine in the situation like that, energy capacity will need to double, but the emission at the same time will need to actually be reduced by about 32%. It will require a very significant contribution for all of the sectors. And I think one of the sectors that can contribute to the reduction of emission is actually the financial sectors as well as the capital markets. Why is that the case? Number one, because if we are going to be able to continue to grow the capacity of energy, whilst at the same time also reduce the emission, it will require a significant amount of financing. And we need to actually have a much better way of actually financing it, a more creative way of actually being able to finance this. So take an example of how are we going to be able to grow the capacity of the renewable energy in Indonesia. Obviously, that will also require a very, very creative way for us to be able to finance this. Number two, the second thing that we would like to also be able to do in Indonesia to drive and to provide incentives across the sectors, whether it is actually energy or food, because food is actually another sector that has actually been contributing significantly in terms of the emission through the land use, is to be able to introduce what we call the carbon credit and carbon market. And that is why the second topic that we are actually going to discuss today is that how Indonesia will be able to develop the carbon market. There is an aspiration from the government of Indonesia to be able to have the ETS market in Indonesia to to be launched by September of this year, if I'm not mistaken, Pak Alu. So we are actually very fortunate that we have the Vice Minister of Environment as well as Forestry in presence and to be able to deliver the keynote speech, to be able to actually share with us what is then the initiative as well as the regulation that will actually be put in place to make sure that Indonesia will be able to have an ETS of the carbon credit launched this year. OJK, the Indonesian FSA, in this year also has introduced the regulation regarding the carbon market as well. And as a matter of fact, the name of the capital markets part of the OJK is now Capital Market and Carbon Market Regulator. So I think that actually shows the importance of the carbon market and what is the correlation between the carbon market as well as the capital market in Indonesia. So I think that's all that I have today in terms of the topic that we will discuss today. The third one obviously is about the role of the investors in pushing forward reduction emission. I think in the capital markets right now, one of the most talked about topic is about ESG, environment, social, as well as the governance. And ESG investing is obviously also one of the most hyped or most talked about topic within the capital markets. In CFA, we are also having standards about ESG, and we are pushing for ESG investing capability. We actually have a certification about how ESG investing is actually going to be developed. We believe this will also become a bigger part of the role of the capital markets. How the capital markets, how the investors, all of the other entities in the capital market will be able to play a role through the ESG investing practices. And we within CFA Institute are also very, very active in terms of how are we going to be able to build the capability to establish a standard practices, not only in terms of ESG investing, but also standard practices about the various funds, how are they going to be able to provide a better disclosure in terms of the ESG practices in the capital market. So we hope the topic about the role of the investors in pushing forward about how Indonesia are going to be able to play a role and to be able to achieve the transition toward net zero will also be a very interesting topic, and we are also very fortunate that we have Pak Adi and Bu Amika as well as Monica to be able to discuss about this topic. So again, thank you very much for all of you to have actually been participating in today's seminar. And in particular, we would like to thank all of the speakers. And of course, there is no event without the sponsor. So thank you PT Pupuk Indonesia, Pertamina, and also PLN, who has actually been providing support, as well as Indica, who has actually also been supporting today's event. I hope you will enjoy it. Hopefully we will learn a lot from today's seminar, and also hopefully we can bring some of this into the practices that we will implement in our institution. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker for today. As Pak Pahala mentioned, we're currently very lucky to have the Deputy Minister for Environment and Forestry, who's been holding that position since October 2019. Prior to that, he was the Deputy for Construction, Operations and Maintenance at the Peat Restoration Agency, position he's held since 2016. And he also teaches Natural Resource and Environmental Management at Palangkaraya University. And earlier on in his career, he founded the Institute for Environment Assessment, Education and Training, also in Palangkaraya, Central Kalimantan. So I think we can all agree that we're very lucky to have a very qualified keynote speaker here today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Pak Alu Dohong to the stage.
Thank you, Pak Marx. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semuanya. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Yang sama-sama kita hormati dan kita banggakan Bapak Wamen BUMN, Bapak Pahala, Bapak-bapak, Ibu peserta seminar ya CFA yang saya banggakan, termasuk para speaker dan distinguished guest semuanya yang berbahagia. Pertama saya ingin ngobrol mix ya, mungkin ada sebagian bahasa Indonesia, ada sebagian bahasa Inggris ya, karena audiensnya orang Indonesia banyak kayak ini. Jadi pertama terima kasih atas undangan ini dan saya sangat menghargai kesempatan yang diberikan untuk menyampaikan beberapa pandangan ya. Seperti yang disampaikan oleh Pak Wamen Pahala tadi di forum ini terkait kebijakan, sebetulnya kebijakan pemerintah terhadap penanganan perubahan iklim di Indonesia sebagai bagian dari kontribusi Indonesia di dalam menangani atau ikut serta di dalam menanggulangi global climate change ya. Tentu Indonesia sangat serius Bapak Ibu semuanya. Very serious to address climate change. Not only because of this global concern, but because this is very important for Indonesia itself, for our community and so on. Because climate change is a real thing. Climate change is no illusion. It's already happening. So we have tribal crisis at the moment actually. First of all, we call it economic crisis or and also health crisis because of the COVID-19. And second is climate change. And the third is about biodiversity loss. Yeah, that we call it the tribal global crisis at the moment. So one of it is about climate change. Indonesia is serious to address climate change. That's why we also parties of the Paris Agreement. And Indonesia already ratified this Paris Agreement through Law Number 16, 2016. And as a part of the seriousness of the Indonesian government to address to implement this Paris Agreement, and then we already submitted two major important documents. First is we call it nationally determined contribution. And the second is we call that LTS-RCCR 2050. So NDC even, we already submitted 3 times of NDC now. First is we call it first NDC, where at the time we committed to reduce emission by 29% with our own effort by 2030, and if there is international assistance, become 41% by 2030. And then the second document of the NDC, we call it enhanced NDC, yeah, where in this enhanced NDC we submitted in last year in September 2020. We enhanced our flags, to reduce up to 31.89% by our own effort by 2030, or become 43.20% with international assistance. So this percentage actually meaningless if we not refer to the how much emission reduction that we need to reduce. So by 31.89%, it means we have to reduce about 915 million CO2 equivalent by 2030. Where in our NDC there are 5 big sectors or contributors, five sectors. First is forestry and land use, and second is energy. Third is about industrial product and product uses. Fourth is about agriculture, and the last one is about waste. Yeah. In the 31.89% or 915 million tons CO2 equivalent that we have to reduce by 2030, 500 million tons actually from forestry sectors and 358 million tons CO2 equivalent from energy. So the remaining of it, just very small amounts, is from other three sectors. But if there is international assistance, as I said, we have to reduce about 1.24 gigaton of CO2 equivalent by 2030, where from forestry sector is about 729% million ton, and then from energy sector about 446 million ton CO2 equivalent that we have to reduce by 2030. That's about our NDC now. Yeah. Second, the big document is about LTS RCCR, where we mentioned in the LTS RCCR we're gonna achieve net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. Yeah. Where in this long-term vision, we hopes that by 2030, our emission from forestry sectors is picking up, and then we start to reduce toward net zero emission by 2030 in the forestry and land use sectors. And after that, energy going to support it, up 2026. So, Bapak Ibu semuanya, in order also to enhance this commitments, Indonesia already put in place some national regulation. Yeah. First of all, about nilai ekonomi carbon, we call it, through presidential decree number 98 2021. This economic carbon value, we can call it. Actually, there are four mechanisms that we can use it, First is about carbon trading, yeah. And the second is about pembayaran berbasis kinerja, we call it, or result-based payment. So the perdagangan carbon actually implementation of the Article 6 of Paris Agreement. The second one of the pembayaran berbasis kinerja or result-based payment is Article 5 of the Paris Agreement. So they are two different things. And then third mechanism is, we call it pungutan atas carbon. Some people share it carbon tax or whatever. And the fourth is about a combined, depend on the technology development and so on. So regarding carbon market or carbon trade, yeah, actually in the regulation, we mentioned about emission trading scheme, or Pak Pala already mentioned ETS, yeah, emission trading scheme. And also the second is about emission offset, yeah. There are two different things, right? In the emission trading, actually we try to use like ETS system in European Union, where we have to cap certain emission target for industry or for any kind of business that contribute substantially to the emission release in Indonesia, or greenhouse gas emission in Indonesia. Meanwhile, offset is something that someone want to participate, in order to, because of the, for example, company actually not really big emitters, but wants to engage, wants to participate in reducing emission either voluntary, whatever we call it, we can do it through offset market. Yeah, or voluntary market also, part of it can operate. Sometime I can see now in Indonesia there is a big opportunity in the forestry sectors. Yeah, because people or companies, whatever we call it, really want to do this, the second things actually, offset. Yeah, offset means that, for example, a company in the energy sector, where this company uses like fossil fuel-based energy system, for example, want to compensate that emission because of this fossil fuel uses, they try to buy a carbon credit from forestry sectors, for example. Jadi sebagai pengganti istilahnya, penyeimbang dari emisi yang dikeluarkan dari penggunaan fossil fuel. Dia mau beli ke sektor kehutanan. That's fine, that's okay. But if we all want to offset it from other sector to other sectors, artinya there is no incentive for that sector to comply with the emission reduction activities in their industry. Maksud saya artinya gini, tadi saya sampaikan bahwa sektor energi itu kontributor terbesar kedua di dalam emisi kita. Jadi kalau semua ingin meng-offset emisinya ke sektor kehutanan tanpa melakukan perbaikan efisiensi energi, transformasi energi dari energi baru terbarukan, maka tidak ada insentif terjadi gitu. Offset itu menurut saya adalah transisi saja. Ya, yang penting tetap dilakukan di sektor energi ini. Nah, tadi Indonesia di NEC kita itu ada pembangkit ya yang diutamakan dan transportasi gitu di Perpres 98 2021. Tetap aja harus melakukan transformasi dari energi fosil menjadi energi baru terbarukan dan tetap juga melakukan efisiensi energi dan seterusnya. Jadi saya tidak mendorong semuanya mau full offset gitu ya. Kalau full offset berarti kan energi mau tetap aja composition yang dinikmatin gitu ya. Mau pakai fossil fuel terus, biar nanti kehutanannya aja ya kita lakukan semua di mangrove, di gambut dan seterusnya. That is not good ya. Menurut saya ini harus kita pikirkan bersama. Karena ada yang harus saya luruskan. Ada misleading seolah-olah NDC itu hanya dilakukan oleh pemerintah semata. Tidak. NDC itu Nationally Determined Contribution tadi yang saya sampaikan, target pengurangan emisi kita itu dilakukan both state and non-state actors, including private sectors. Ya. Makanya di emission trading kita akan lakukan nanti penetapan batas atas emisi bagi yang big emitters di dalam ekonomi kita. Maka caps akan dilakukan di situ. Kalau caps itu ada baru bisa terjadi trading ya. Jadi kalau bicara carbon trading mesti ada demand, ada supply kan gitu. Kalau semua ingin menjadi supplier carbon credit ya siapa yang memintanya gitu ya. Makanya demand tadi salah satunya lakukan lewat caps tadi ya. Supaya ada yang beli kan gitu. Kalau semua mau produksi karbon certified emission reduction, enggak ada yang beli ya percuma. Dan yang beli itu tadi saya bilang, kalau pemerintah caps ke big emitters di company yang ada di Indonesia, maka dia bisa melakukan tadi, bisa membeli lewat market, bisa lakukan upaya pengurangan emisi sendiri, dia bisa beli dari perusahaan-perusahaan yang lain yang melakukan berhasil menurunkan emisi di bawah capsnya. Itu yang paling penting ya. Nah yang kedua, tentang infrastruktur kebijakan yang sudah ditetapkan yaitu melalui peraturan Menteri LHK nomor 21 2022 yang lalu, yaitu tentang tata laksana atau tata cara penerapan nilai ekonomi karbon. Ya, kenapa ini diperlukan? Karena ini ya, pertama Indonesia ingin fokus agar NDC-nya tercapai. Maka untuk mencapai NDC tadi saya sudah sampaikan Ada yang dilakukan pemerintah untuk mengurangi emisi lewat program-program pemerintah, ada yang kita dorong lewat market misalnya, lewat carbon trading, ya. Nah, carbon trading ini di dalam peraturan kita ada yang domestik, ada yang internasional, ya. Internasional penting, maka yang harus dilakukan kalau kaitannya kita menjual ke International Certified Emission Reduction, maka dibutuhkan yang namanya corresponding adjustment. Artinya apa? Kalau Indonesia menjual certified emission reduction-nya ke Jepang dan pemerintah Jepang mengklaim itu menjadi bagian dari pengurangan emisinya, maka di Indonesia boleh dicatat tapi tidak boleh diklaim. Di Jepang dicatat tapi diklaim, kan begitu. Karena di artikel 6 Paris Agreement, artikel 6.2 kalau nggak salah, itu dihindari yang namanya double counting dan double claiming. Jadi bahaya kalau Indonesia meregister ini, diregister terus kita klaim juga di NDC, padahal Certified Emission Reduction ini kita jual ke Jepang, terus diklaim oleh Jepang juga. Berarti kan terjadi double claiming, double counting hanya untuk satu Certified Emission Reduction. Ya, CR itu sebetulnya nilai ekuivalensinya 1 ton CO2 ekuivalen per lembar, kan gitu misalnya. Ini yang harus dihindarin. Yang kedua yang penting di dalam international trading ini adalah otorisasi, ya, dari pemerintah. Karena sebetulnya misalnya di sektor kehutanan ini kan hutannya kan ada di Indonesia, biomassnya ada di pohon-pohon yang ada di ekosistem Indonesia, baik di mangrove, di gambut misalnya atau di hutan lainnya. Di undang-undang kita semua sumber daya alam itu belong to the state. Jadi artinya proses kalau kita sudah mencertified dia dan ini ditransaksikan, pemerintah harus menyetujui dulu, kan diotorisasi oleh pemerintah, kan begitu. Yang ketiga sebetulnya juga yang paling penting, setiap aktivitas itu harus diregistrasi. Nah, di aturan kita registry sistem kita itu sudah ada di KLHK. Jadi setiap inisiatif project emission reduction activities baik di sektor forestry and land uses dan juga energi dan lain-lainnya waste harus diregister dulu. Diregistrasi dalam arti tadi supaya pemerintah bisa memonitor berapa sih kegiatannya, apa sih kegiatan emission reduction-nya, di mana, berapa potensial emission reduction yang akan dilakukan, pendanaannya seperti apa, dan nanti certified emission reduction yang dihasilkan itu dikemanakan. Itu penting, karena register itu tidak hanya mencatat, mendaftar, tapi tadi pertukaran unit karbon antar negara dicatat di sistem registrasi nasional. Karena itu kalau Indonesia dan Jepang berdagang karbon nih, maka sistem registrasi di Jepang dan di Indonesia harus ada mutual recognition-nya. Gak bisa Indonesia buat registrasi sendiri, Jepang gak punya misalnya, atau dia buat registrasi dengan sistem yang berbeda. Dan antara dua registry sistem dua negara ini nanti terkonek dengan international registry yang diampu oleh UNFCCC. Itu kontrolnya, ya, supaya terkontrol semua. Jadi ini masih langkahnya Pak Pahala lumayan panjang sih sebetulnya. Tapi kalau kita create yang domestik dulu ya nggak apa-apa, lebih cepat. Tapi kalau yang internasional memang butuh tadi ya, banyak proses juga. Ada mutual agreement, mutual recognition dari masing-masing negara yang mau terlibat, gitu ya. Sama yang dilakukan private sector misalnya. Sekarang yang terjadi voluntary market kan antar company, business to business misalnya, lewat sistem FERA, VCS macam-macam. Dan sistem voluntary market sekarang ini yang berkembang, kan mereka punya sistem registrasi sendiri. Mereka juga sekaligus project validator, assessor, verificator. Mereka juga sekaligus sebagai marketplace. Nah di sistem yang ini beda gitu ya. Makanya sistem voluntary yang sekarang kita harapkan ada alignment, penyesuaian dengan sistem yang diatur oleh pemerintah supaya nanti pada saat terjadi transaksi internasional kaitannya sama, ke internasional ke UNFCCC-nya sama gitu loh. Jadi tidak ada double claiming, double counting, ada otorisasi dan seterusnya. Itu hal-hal yang sebetulnya menurut saya penting. Sekarang kita sedang proses, ini hanya di sektor kehutanan sudah keluar Permen 7 2023 tentang tata cara perdagangan karbon sektor kehutanan. Karena setiap sektor itu spesifik sekali ya. Energi beda lagi. Saya kira di Perpres 98 2021 tentang nilai ekonomi karbon, nanti ISDM juga harus membuat peraturan di sektor energi sendiri. Ya. Tapi registrasinya tetap di satu sistem di KLHK karena KLHK itu adalah national focal point dari UNFCCC di Indonesia. Ya, karena di situ semua yang akan terjadi pelaporan ke UNFCCC sebagai kewajiban kita di dalam pemenuhan komitmen NDC kita di UNFCCC. Di sektor kehutanan kita juga sudah sebetulnya buka yang namanya Forest and Land Use Collaboration Office di KLHK. Jadi kalau rekan-rekan sektor dunia usaha ingin berkonsultasi atau ingin mengembangkan itu, saya sarankan ketemu aja di kantor di sana ya, diskusi, konsultasi sebelum semuanya karena ini kan kayaknya berebut dan cepet-cepetan ya. Ya, karena saya juga tidak ingin kalau saya sendiri secara pribadi menyatakan kita tidak boleh terlalu over expectation ya. Segala sesuatunya mudah, cepat dan hasilnya besar gitu ya. Karena challenges-nya banyak, challenging-nya banyak gitu ya. Karena metodologi, verifikasi dan seterusnya. Sama dengan CFA mungkin ya, ada sistem certification-nya ya, sistem ininya. Harapannya nanti juga sistem kan di dalam arsitektur pasar karbon kita itu ada yang namanya sistem registry, ada nanti drum. Drum itu seperti kepada emission reduction, mitigation action-nya. Kemudian ada MRV-nya, monitoring verification sistemnya. Baru penerbitan certified emission reduction-nya, baru itu yang dijual. Nah di dalam MRV ini, ya monitoring verification system ini butuh banyak tenaga asesor validators. Dan kami ingin nanti ini juga terakreditate ya. Kalau sistem validasinya mungkin dengan badan standarisasi kita BSN dan juga badan standarisasi instrumen KLHK. Tapi untuk yang tenaga asesornya nanti mungkin ada juga di BSPN ya namanya di Indonesia itu, yang mengakreditasi para asesor facilitator sini. Jadi kita persyaratkan nanti developer project karbon harus menggunakan tenaga validator dan asesor yang terakreditasi, tersertifikat. Ya, bukan orang sembarangan. Tiba-tiba menyatakan ahli karbon, padahal tidak ahli karbon. Ya, tiba-tiba mengetahui segalanya, padahal belum tentu paham. Ya, karena ini sesuatu yang harus kita dorong supaya akuntabilitasnya terjamin gitu ya. Jadi tidak sembarang orang nanti bikin hitung-hitungan dan seterusnya kalau validator dan asesornya bukan orang yang tersertifikat dengan benar. Ini yang kita akan kembangkan. Jadi persiapan-persiapan itu yang kita harapkan terus disiapkan pemerintah. Tadi Pak Pahala menyatakan September akan jalan. Itu memang target uji coba ya Pak Wamen ya. Dan itu kerjasama dengan OJK tadi, karena yang mengotorisasi lewat bursanya kayaknya OJK yang harus menerbitkannya. Kita exercise dulu lah di situ. Memang menurut saya memang ini harus segera di-exercise ya. Karena terlalu lambat juga kita akan missing opportunity, kita juga banyak hal-hal yang mungkin kelewatan nanti. Kita learning by doing lah, karena ini kan kita baru mulai. ITS saja European Trading Scheme yang sudah lama aja mereka berfase-fase puluhan tahun untuk belajar bagaimana carbon market ini bisa jalan, dan itu juga pasang surutnya kita tahu kan ya. pernah crash sampai harganya di bawah $1 per CR misalnya. Sekarang balik lagi misalnya. Itu juga sangat menentukan. Karena itu pengalaman ITS itu harus kita belajar dulu. Dulu kan pernah crash karena buffer zone enggak ada misalnya. Semua dilelang, dikasih oleh otoritasnya kepada ITS-nya sekian juta ton, kamu bagi kepada tadi di caps ke perusahaan yang wajib mengurangi instalasi, kalau istilahnya di sana wajib mengurangi emisi. Nah, kalau dia bisa melebihi cap, dia achievementnya dia bisa jual ke yang lain yang masih di bawah caps, kan begitu. Itu yang harus kita, sehingga dulu sempat crash, harganya jatuh di bawah $1. Nah, sekarang pakai buffer zone dia kendalikan. Jadi ada yang dia simpen, nanti kalau ini bisa dikontrol dengan itu. Ini juga hal yang harus kita lihat ke depan. Kira-kira itu yang saya sampaikan. Mudah-mudahan ini bukan key sebetulnya yang saya sampaikan ini, tapi hanya sekedar general things ya. Mudah-mudahan bisa dipahamin, tapi lebih detailnya menurut saya, ya nanti yang kehutanan silakan konsultasi karena kita sudah punya kantor tersendiri yang menangani itu, yang menangani konsultasi dan sebagainya, dan sistem registrasi juga sudah kita kembangkan dan terus kita perbaharui. Bahkan mudah-mudahan September ini sesuai rancangan mungkin perdana tradingnya di bursa bisa dilakukan ya. Kita doakan bersama supaya Indonesia bisa juga jalan dengan inisiatif aset baru ini ya. Ini sebetulnya karbon aset ya. Karbon aset yang mungkin juga aset baru yang kita harus create ya. Saya juga concern itu kalau di sektor kehutanan kan orang hanya menilai karbon aset itu dari biomass. Biomass itu hanya dari sequestration and sinks. Padahal di ekosistem hutan itu ada banyak environmental services. Ada biodiversity, ada hydro, ada geothermal. Kalau suatu areal di-assign sebagai project karbon yang dihitung hanya dari biomass, kita missing opportunity dari ekosistem services lainnya. Karena pada umumnya kalau sudah dijadikan project karbon tidak boleh dilakukan apa-apa lagi. Tidak boleh ada kegiatan lain dan sebagainya. Harusnya environmental services itu secara bundling, kita nilai semua. Sehingga harga karbonnya terintegrasi semua nilai gitu loh. Itu yang saya dorong sekarang. Sehingga asset value-nya bisa lebih besar. Jadi kalau beli certified emission reduction dari Indonesia, dari sektor kehutanan misalnya, ini nilai asetnya macam-macam di situ gitu. Komponen penilaian satu ton ini bisa dari nilai biomass-nya, bisa nilai dari biodiversity, bisa nilai dari dari hydro dan lain-lainnya, geothermal dan seterusnya. Sehingga ini namanya high quality carbon. Bukan hanya berdasarkan biomass. Kalau biomass kan kita ngelihat dari selisih antara berapa yang disekuestrasi, berapa yang leakage, berapa yang tersisa, kan begitu. Itu very small sometimes ya. Bahkan 1 hektar per tahun kalau sudah pohonnya di atas 4-5 tahun umurnya, bisa jadi cuma 10 ton per hektar per tahun. Bisa jadi tergantung jenisnya. Karena kalau pohon-pohon ringan kan berat biomasanya sangat ringan gitu ya. Bisa jadi cuma 10 ton, 5 ton, tapi kalau yang berat jenisnya besar seperti kayu-kayu keras itu biasanya slow growing species ya, butuh waktu lama. Nah, kalau kita bayangkan 10 ton per hektar per tahun kali $5, berapa? $50 ya. $50 ya. 5 kali 10, 50. Jangan-jangan operating and maintenance cost-nya lebih besar dari itu gitu dalam 1 hektar. Ini yang harus kita pertimbangkan ya. Potensi leakage juga jadi masalah. Karena kalau jurisdiction system secara suatu jurisdiksi Satu proyek karbon di sini, di sana kebakaran, di sana terjadi penerbangan, kadang-kadang dihitung sebagai leakage. Jadi di diskon yang di sini gitu misalnya, itu juga hati-hati ya. Jadi banyak hal-hal teknis, saya harap CFA bisa berperan ya. Dua hal menurut saya, satu adalah upskilling, peningkatan pengetahuan skill di bidang carbon trading ini. Boleh kan ya Pak Pale ya, bisa masuk ke situ ya, perannya ke depan, bisa lihat opportunity di situ ya. Yang kedua adalah capacity building, technical capacity building. Tadi saya bilang assessor, validator itu sesuatu yang skill technical issues. Jadi bisa juga CFA bantu ke situ. Yang ketiga mungkin tadi creating value, asset values. Jadi nambahin nilainya ya, bahwa tidak hanya dari biomass tapi juga dari yang lain-lain. Saya kira orang CFA lebih pintar dari saya untuk yang gitu-gitu ya. Saya kira itu yang bisa saya sampaikan. So sorry if Marx and the others, they don't understand what I've just mentioned, yeah, to be honest. But I do believe your colleagues gonna explain later to you, and I do hope what I just given here is make a bit clear about everything. But as I said earlier, this learning by doing. So Indonesian carbon trading is we start to doing it and learning by doing it, right? So terima kasih dan mohon maaf kalau ada hal yang tidak berkenan. Saya ini wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi Santi Om.